Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of FiST Chat, the vodcast that discusses topics related to film, science and technology. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined here by Stephen Kern again. How you doing there, Steve?
I'm doing really well, actually. Sorry about that. You caught me napping. Hello, everyone.
That's good, all good. This is the second of two episodes that we've got that we're doing today, and today we're actually going to be, in this episode we're talking about the state of Hollywood as it is today, especially compared to where it's been. Just launching into it, the immediate thoughts that I've been thinking of late is that in the past decade, it probably, I mean, you can't really accuse Hollywood of not, ever having a tendency to recycle old material, or, punching out the sequels or the remakes or whatever. I mean, they've been doing that for decades, but there's an absolute tendency right now, especially in the last 10 years, that they are just not taking any risks whatsoever on anything new. I mean, if you have a look at the slate of films that are coming out this year, sequels, remakes, comic books, it's just the same thing again. And yeah, I mean, you can't really blame them from a financial perspective, because for the simple reason is that those movies make money. They've had previous entries, the previous years they've made lots of money, so from an economic standpoint it makes perfect sense to do that. But sorry Steve, do you want to jump in there?
Oh yeah, of course. I just want to say, damn straight they make money, and you've got to remember Hollywood is a business, and it is an entertainment factory. They have to make money.
And I've got absolutely no issue with that side of things, and I think there absolutely is a place for all of these sequels and remakes or whatever that they want to do, and if they want to generate their huge revenues. But if for example, if you were to look back even maybe to the 70s or 80s, they were producing those kinds of films, but what they were also doing is that they kind of had a mentality where, all right, we're going to punch out one or two blockbusters. We're also going to punch out one or two films that we think are probably going to make money, but they'll probably be more of a medium range type of film. Maybe they'll make some money, maybe they won't, but we think we're fairly confident that they will. And then they might take a risk on maybe one or two others where they're not really sure what's going to happen with them. They might give them a lower budget or something like that. And then they'll get surprised. 1 in 4 of those films might become a runaway hit. Then they've got a new franchise to spawn sequels out of, or whatever else that they want to do. I mean, just as an example, I was actually I came across Out of Africa the other day, from 1984 or 5. I can't remember which one it was. And for me, it was. Yes, I was. I am a little older than. But I mean, it was a boring film for me. I just didn't think it was that interesting. I remember Spielberg's Color Purple came out the same year, and there was a whole controversy about him not getting Oscars, and then they all went to Out of Africa instead. And I actually thought Color Purple was a far better film now that I've seen Out of Africa, but that's a whole other episode right there, the politics of the Academy. But one thing that did strike me when I was watching it was, do you really think that Hollywood would be making a film like that today? I mean, it was just, characters, story, and shots that, didn't involve cuts every 2 seconds, or were, being flung around all over the place and jittery. I mean, there has been a shift in that sort of filmmaking, hasn't there?
Well, there's no question, and I remember once, Ben, you and I talking to film critic Stan James, who actually worked at Warner Brothers, I think, back in the 60s. And there's no question that Hollywood's golden era was the 70s, and probably early 80s, where they made the best films, and I think, they had the best scripts, best actors, and, probably the best production standards. And they had to have good standards because they didn't have CGI to fix anything. But, and look, the original Tron is a marvellous film. and that is done all old school. So compare that to the new one, and just see what you think of the effects and comparing the two scripts. But you know, Hollywood's a business, probably with the exception of the 3D films in the last couple of years, like Avatar. No, they probably haven't done anything new. What I'm more interested in, and perhaps you know this, Ben, is you know, where are all the adventurous different films coming from? I mean, they seem to me almost to be coming out of Eastern Europe and you know, small independent filmmaking franchises.
Yeah, there really isn't that sort of mid-range film anymore, unless it's coming from an established director. Which actually, just on one point that you mentioned, you brought up Avatar, which is an interesting example. Now, if you think about that, and I think you can probably lump Inception in with this as well on this point. Both of those films are from directors that made films that were either, you know, the top grossing films ever or second top, you know, in that, you know, James Cameron made Titanic, which was the highest grossing film before Avatar, and Christopher Nolan had made The Dark Knight the year before, or 2 years before, and that made so much money that in effect they were given license to do whatever they wanted after that. But the point is that they had to make the highest grossing film in history in order to be given license to do something that they want to do, in this case create something original. Although, if I want to throw a spanner in the works, I'm not sure how much of Avatar was really that original. But
I'm not sure how much of Inception was original. I think it was a good idea, but you know, gee, someone should have looked at the script before they made it.
But I mean, you know, that just like, but I mean, if you're looking at it from a technical point of view, those films in effect were not based on anything that came beforehand, which is something that Hollywood just doesn't do anymore. And I think like that it's really skewing away from. It's just getting worse and worse with each passing year. That the films have to be super successful now in order for a filmmaker to get to do something maybe that is a bit more challenging, something that's a bit more engaging.
Well, I've got a question for you then, Ben, and I mean, these are, you know, good historical questions looking at the golden years of Hollywood. If you look at, you know, Star Wars, you know, which really started off some of the CGI, Tron as well, which was a really groundbreaking film and probably the pinnacle of old-style special effects. You know, how much has our ability to do CGI changed things? I mean, French Connection, I think, was the first film with a car chase or a bullet around the late 60s, you know, the big, exciting car chase. Now it's all done CGI. It's all done with robotic cars, you know, on rams, bashing into things. It's very, very different. How do you think technology has played out this?
It's hard to tell. I think it's kind of this. If you're kind of seeing a parallel argument, you brought up Star Wars to me, which the original Star Wars is a great film, but then it gets blamed for all the crap that came out afterwards.
That's the point I'm making.
And
CGI.
And I don't know if necessarily I don't think the CGI is a bad thing, but I think the way it's being used is a bad thing, because you'll get, for me, like Avatar for me was a great experience. It wasn't necessarily a great film because the story wasn't anything. I mean, I knew exactly what was happening after 10 minutes. I could see what the whole thing was going to be. But as an experience, because they created like that whole world in CG, and it looked fantastic when you watched it, and I think they also took advantage of the 3D aspect as well, and it's been the only film to have done that, I think, truly this whole time. I think that's where the problem lies, because you get a film that will do so, and again, 3D is another example. That's just like another add-on technology. You get a film like Avatar, makes $2 billion and whatever else more, and then Hollywood comes in and says, all right, we're going to convert all our films to 3D so we can charge $25 per ticket and earn an extra $50 million on the back end. And immediately after that, I think one of the 3D films I saw after that was Clash of the Titans. Now, that wasn't necessarily a good film either, but the 3D work was shoddy in that, and essentially the reason why it was shoddy was because it was shot as a normal film, and then about 6 weeks before release, they said, all right, we're going to do a 3D conversion on it. Now, that's where I think the problem is.
That's very Hollywood. Well, I'll hit you with this one as well then, Ben. Final Fantasy, which was a fantastic animated feature. I mean, they were all the rage, and we weren't going to need actors anymore, and we haven't seen any more animated features like that.
Yeah, well, in essence, because Final Fantasy didn't make money, so we're coming back to that the old thing again. If it makes money, then they do more of it until they kill it, so to speak.
The other point you raised there as well, which was very interesting, was back-ending by putting films out in 3D so they can charge more. And the interesting thing there is that once they get to wireless or full digital distribution through their wireless networks, then the studios are going to start making serious money.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to the point. I mean, you can be fair in that, you take inflation, CPI or whatever, and obviously ticket prices go up over time, but it's getting to the point now where if you're having to spend $20 to watch a film, I find that I'm starting to question whether I actually really want to go see it, because 9 times out of 10, the film will be disappointing if it's a Hollywood film.
Oh, that's hard.
I mean, there's probably more than that. Every now and then there'll be a film that I'll think is totally worth the money. Like, for example, I thought, even though I've sort of dissed Avatar a little bit, I thought that was worth the money. A previous example that I thought was worth the money would have been The Dark Knight. I mean, that was just really well done. An example of how a Hollywood mainstream film, when done properly, can be a really exciting experience. But now that it's starting to cost so much money, and I won't buy anything else at the cinema, so I'm not going to buy popcorn or drinks, all the overpriced stuff there. But if you can imagine normal punters going in, they're spending just for themselves $20 on a ticket. They might spend another $20 on confectionery and drinks. If you extrapolate that out, they take a family of 4 to the cinema. Suddenly it becomes somewhere between $70 to $100 to take them to the cinema. You could just buy a DVD or even a Blu-ray. I've seen them quite cheap now for just a quarter of the cost, and with the technology you've got at home, you can just watch it at home, and it's probably even better than what it is in the cinema.
Well, I think you're right there, Ben, because obviously, if you look at what I think the original VCR revolution did to Hollywood, was it did make them make better films, and it did make them think more about the way they were making films. So perhaps if they see a downturn because they price themselves out of the market and there's enough competition from home cinema, you'll probably see them change their business model and change their ideas about what sorts of films should be made.
And I guess just to finish up, then the idea is that once we get to a stage where cinemas are all digital and you're getting the streams fed via satellite with some guy in America pressing a button or something. Well, maybe it won't be that far away, but if once you get to that stage and you remove all the costs of making prints, transportation, and all of that sort of thing, hopefully you would think they'd have the sense to reduce the price of the experience, because eventually people just won't go to it. And there is a decline happening in overall ticket sales. If you have a look at box office reports, a lot of them are actually saying year on year what's been happening is that, yes, maybe the revenue's being either the same or it's going up a little bit, but what they're saying is overall attendance numbers are down, which seems to suggest that even though the ticket prices are going up, there are less people buying tickets, which means that's going to end up in a not good situation for Hollywood at the end of the day, because it'll just get to a point where they can't charge what they're charging.
Either that or we'll be staying home watching our films.
Absolutely. All right, we'll finish up there. Thanks again, Steve, for the chat. And all right, we're going to look forward to next week now. And we're going to change gears again, and we're going to hit back into some science. And we're going to be talking about outer space and the future of humans and where we might be going in that regard. So until then, we'll catch you then.